Right now at 6, how Oregon's economic forecast just got a bit murky.
But the deteriorating growth outlook at the national level has direct implications to the state of Oregon.
Plus, deep in the woods.
It's cool being able to be a part of that, being able to be a part of something bigger.
The work camp training people in custody to save property and lives from wildfires.
Then, how Portland's Hollywood district is leaning into its namesake theater to bring new life to the neighborhood.
So to see things being built around that is really cool.
And later in sports, the Trailblazers for sale sign is up, and Oregon's richest man has weighed in. Why he says he won't be putting in an offer.
First at 6, Oregon's latest revenue forecast is out, and it's $500 million less than previously predicted. Thanks for joining us. I'm David Molko.
And I'm Christine Pitawanich. That massive decrease all but cancels out the positives predicted back in March. Celine Stevens heard from lawmakers to understand more about what this means for you and what's behind the change.
There's been a lot of pointing fingers from both sides of the political aisle regarding who's responsible for this drop in revenue. One economist I spoke with Wednesday describing the current situation as a meaningful deteriorated economic outlook compared to what we saw back in March. Here's what he says is contributing to what could potentially be a period of sluggish economic growth.
This is a changing economic landscape that is resulting in large part from the uncertainty stemming from the tariff situation nationally.
The Department of Administrative Services released Oregon's economic and revenue forecast Wednesday for the next biennium, which brought some notable changes compared to the last forecast in March.
The revenue changes occur both for this biennium and next biennium. So the change this biennium is $167 million down, and most of that takes place in the last 3 months here. We're almost to the end of the biennium. And then next biennium, the revenues are down $337 million. So really between this biennium and next biennium, total revenues are down close to $500 million.
He says that paired with around $250 million in spending increases made this session leads to around $755 million total in reduced resources. Governor Tina Kotek saying Wednesday she will be working with legislative leaders to prioritize key issues.
Yeah, we knew that this would be a challenging budget environment. We're going to have to be lean at state government, but we're going to stay committed to the investments that we know need to be made. Housing, homelessness, behavioral health, we cannot go backwards. We need to continue to go forward.
Governor calling out the Trump administration's actions as a reason for the worrying numbers and addressing the need for hard budget choices. But Republican Representative Christine Drazen says what's going on in Washington, D.C. is not responsible.
I think that the governor's fear-mongering right now. I think that they have grown accustomed to being able to have a slush fund in our state budget and spend money on whatever they want and ignore the core functions of government.
Drazen saying these problems aren't new.
That idea that Oregon isn't responsible for the position we find ourselves in today just is patently false. What we have lacked is local leadership. That the governor has continued to spend money on services that have enabled addiction across our state rather than supporting access to treatment.
Despite the available resources for the next biennium being $37.4 billion, up from around $32 billion 2 years ago, Oregon's chief economist Carl Riccadonna says what's happening nationally plays a big role in the current forecast.
But the deteriorating growth outlook at the national level has direct implications to the state of Oregon. So I will say if we look at the performance of the economy in the state over the last 4 to 6 quarters, it has been underperforming relative to the national trends. So there is some local issues that are unique to the state, but more broadly, tariffs are a impediment to economic activity.
To be clear, we are not in a recession, but Riccadonna says the period of slow growth could contribute to unemployment rates rising even higher. Wednesday, those numbers came out for April, showing Oregon's unemployment rate higher than the national average, sitting at 4.7%. The next forecast is expected to be released toward the end of summer. In Salem, Celine Stevens, KGW News.
Developing tonight, we are following two deadly crashes within 12 hours of each other on one of Portland's most notorious roadways.
We're talking about different stretches of Powell Boulevard, also known as Highway 26. Tim Gordon's in the newsroom with more on the safety challenges along that roadway. Tim?
Yeah, we've been talking about the serious challenges for years as Highway 26 or Powell Boulevard here in the Portland area has become busier and busier and more dangerous. These two crashes so close together in timing and location, the latest example of what can happen. The first on Tuesday afternoon involving a motorcycle and a minivan near Southeast Powell and 80th. The motorcyclist did not survive. The second crash was shortly after 11 last night in Gresham. Police say an SUV that you see there crashed into a tree off West Powell near Bryn Mawr Way. The driver, the only one in the vehicle, died at the scene. Officers say they believe excessive speed was involved in that crash. Well, there is certainly a lot that can go wrong along a busy Powell Boulevard because it's technically a state highway. This is a roadway is maintained by ODOT, which acknowledges that a lot has changed.
You know, when this highway was built a long time ago, it was built as just that, a highway. And today it functions more like a main street in a town than it does a highway. And so the needs and the uses of this area have changed. And that's why we have made safety improvements and will continue to make safety improvements to make this whole corridor a better place for people to live, work, and travel.
In fact, ODOT is currently working on safety upgrades on outer Powell Boulevard on traffic signals, crosswalks, sidewalks, and other features. And in Portland, there's a plan in place to eventually turn control of Powell Boulevard over to the city of Portland after a lot of those improvements are complete. Christine?
Yeah, good to know those safety upgrades are in the works. Tim Gordon reporting. Thank you, Tim. In your headlines, Gresham police have arrested a man in connection with a deadly shooting last week. Gresham police found 22-year-old Ahanu Johnson's body at the Birdsdale Mobile Home Park, located off Northeast 201st last Monday. Investigators identified 21-year-old Quincy Teclea Manot as a suspect. This morning, a SWAT team arrested him at his home in Troutdale. He was booked into the Multnomah County Jail on second-degree murder charges.
Also in Gresham, two teenagers are facing attempted murder charges in connection with the Tuesday shooting that sent a person to the hospital with critical injuries. Around 4 a.m., police received a report of gunfire near Southeast Ritchie Road and 182nd in Pleasant Valley. Then, while investigating, officers found a home that had been hit by bullets. They later learned a shooting victim had shown up at the hospital after being given a ride in a stolen car. Today, two 16-year-olds were arrested and booked into juvenile detention.
In Cornelius, 5 people are recovering from a crash after police say a car ran a red light and was hit by a school bus. It happened around 8 o'clock this morning at North Adair and 10th Avenue. No children were on the bus, but 3 adults were on board and were hurt, in addition to 2 adults in the car. Their injuries are not considered life-threatening.
And Multnomah County is set to stop handing out tents and tarps to people experiencing homelessness. The county chair saying beginning May 27th, tents will only be handed out during severe cold weather events. Commissioners today framing this as a way to focus on more significant shelter options.
I think it will create additional pressure on us to deliver on the services that we know should be offered and getting people on their path to both shelter and ultimately to housing.
The county will continue to distribute sleeping bags along with hygiene kits, first aid supplies, water, and clothing. We'll have much more coming up at 6:30 on The Story. And reaction from homeless advocates tonight on KGW News at 11. Matt?
All right, Dave, it turned into a pretty nice afternoon. We've got some good sun breaks happening outside right now. You can see the scene from our reserve golf course skycam in Washington County. Much the same over Portland and Multnomah County. It's not a super warm day, only 60 degrees. Pretty good breezes picked up this afternoon, too, as the onshore flow is beginning to increase. And it's doing that because there's a new weather system that will be heading our way during the day tomorrow, and it will be bringing us some showers and some light rain. You see the clouds a little bit thicker offshore, but they really broke up nicely over the inland areas of Oregon during the day today. Kind of fun to see. Tomorrow, 49 in the morning. We'll get to 52 at 11 o'clock. 2 o'clock, 62. In fact, that's our high temperature for the day, and it happens a little bit early because after that, rain sets in. That'll have a cooling effect. We'll be in the 50s in the evening, and the light rain again begins in the afternoon, but it ends in the evening hours. It's a quick hit. Up in the Cascades, still winter, only 33 degrees up there at Timberline Live. So light rain tomorrow afternoon, dry, mild, partly sunny on Friday. Very pleasant day. Will warm up a little bit more. And then on Saturday, we will see frequent showers, maybe even a thunderstorm. That's how the weekend begins. We'll show you how it's going to end a little bit later, guys.
Sounds good. Thank you, Matt. A popular neighborhood in Northeast Portland is going to be getting a new look over the next couple of years.
Joe Neri's live in the Hollywood district. Joe, fair to say it might start looking a little more like the LA version, with plans to turn it into a film district. What do we know?
And hey, that's a version I kind of like, David. Yeah, well, the Hollywood Theater behind me is nearly 100 years old, and the executive director of the theater has big plans, not only for the theater, but also for this neighborhood. He's hoping to renovate the theater over the next couple of years. Not only that, he's planning on bringing a very popular movie rental store that's in Southeast Portland to right across the street here in Northeast Portland. There's still a feeling of old Hollywood along Northeast Sandy Boulevard in Northeast Portland. But now there's a plan to make this area new again.
I'd like to see the whole Hollywood area be developed more. It seems like more could happen here. I like it as it is, but especially the movie stuff with the theater.
The Hollywood Theater is in the early stages of making this area a film district. That includes renovations to the nearly century-old theater.
I feel like this is the perfect opportunity. It's the right time. People need to get out, enjoy their neighborhoods. You know, everyone wants to see things revitalized now.
The executive director of the Hollywood Theater, Doug White, told me the planning process is in the early stages. In a statement, he said, "We envision a vibrant hub of community life that will draw movie lovers together from all over the region and beyond." He went on to say he wants to renovate the theater and give moviegoers an improved experience. One thing they plan on doing, taking this building from across the street on Sandy and moving Movie Madness in.
I think it's fitting. It's Hollywood. We've had the Hollywood Theater here. I mean, it's such a relic. It's really important to the spot. I think it's like the highlight of this whole district.
Currently, the store is in the Belmont neighborhood in Southeast Portland. These plans would include turning it into a world-class video rental store. It wouldn't be just movies you could rent. There would also be a special screening room and a restaurant with a bar. Grace Crane, who works down the street at Sizzle Pie, says it's not easy to get people to come through the neighborhood.
I think that Sandy can kind of be a hard place to get a lot of foot traffic because it's such a non-highway highway kind of situation.
But she's hopeful that a little old Hollywood charm with a new look could fix that. Now, David and Christine, again, we're still in the very early process of all of this, but the director, Doug White, told me earlier that he's expected to have this all done, all the construction done in the next couple of years. Right around 3 years or so is kind of that timeline. As for where the new Movie Madness is going to go, right across the street, well, earlier today, they had already started the demolition of what will eventually be the new Movie Madness. A lot of people are excited in this part of Northeast Portland, and it's going to be excited to see what comes of it over the next couple of years. Back to you guys.
Yeah, can't wait to see how it all changes and develops. Thank you so much, Joe.